What's up, everybody? Tobin here with you. Get kind of into a Game 4 recap. I did do this on the radio show today, and if you guys want to catch clips of Tobin and Leroy now, go to youtube.com/StickOfMiami. It is there in the link below. You guys can click there, subscribe there. You guys will get your radio show as you are used to consuming. I want to do something a little bit different here today. I will mention, some thoughts that I had on the game, but kind of want to also put a shift on focus onto the rest of the series as well, as we are tied at 2-2 after last night's. I'm not going to mince words. It was an absolute embarrassment that the Miami Heat put forth on that court. Just one of the worst playoff games I've ever seen them play. It was it had the feeling of they were content. I'll give Boston their credit too. That but Boston, I don't think they really played that great a game. Jason Tatum, unsurprisingly, bounced back. They only give you that stat 1,000 times, and he is a bit of a front runner. So not surprising that he went out there with them having a big lead and put up some points. But as far as just watching the Miami Heat, it was putrid. And that has been a trend. Is that there's just been these lulls of terrible offense that you see them play. And, when you have a defense that's as good as Boston's, it does worry you from time to time. And so I think that the way I wanted to frame this particular one here, as opposed to just, my normal bemoaning, which I did mostly on the radio show today, is I got three things. We're tied at 2-2. So it's three things that I'm worried about and three things that I feel good about going into this potential 2 out of 3. Maybe it's just 2 more for the Miami Heat. Maybe they lose the next 2. But of these last 3 potential games, what am I worried about and what do I feel good about going in the rest of the way? And so I think the obvious first one is the injuries for the Miami Heat. The first thing I'm worried about is what their health concern is. And I am aware Boston has their own stuff to deal with. Marcus Smart and his ankle. Robert Williams looks like he's lugging around one leg out there. So I am totally aware that Boston's dealing with their own stuff. I am talking this strictly as a Heat fan. What am I worried about with the team that I root for going into these last potential 3 games? And I am worried about Jimmy Butler and that knee, that he did not look himself, has not looked himself ever since the dirty tactics by that Garden Gnome Peyton Pritchard, which, by the way, has gone undersold. Spo was really, really pissed about that. Said he doesn't give an SHIT. Why he spells it, I don't know. I think it's a thing like he doesn't want his kids to see him curse on television. I was young enough to remember a young Eric Spoelstra in 2009 cursing at Dwayne Wade, telling his plan in the game was we're in the bonus, give the ball to Dwayne and get the F out of his way, although he said the F word on television. I remember that. But I am concerned about Jimmy Butler. I'm concerned that the guy who looked like the biggest force in the playoffs for the first 3 rounds and really through game 1 isn't the same, doesn't look himself, doesn't quite have that burst. And I think that one of the things that helps against Boston is he has just such a relentlessness to get to that free throw line. I think that we have seen in this series, first of all, the calls going Boston's way in a big, big way with this officiating crew. They are calling this heavily in Celtics' favor, especially these last 2 games. I think it's 68-28. It kind of went undersold yesterday just because, the Heat were so out of it. Like, I don't want to be here and bitching about the ref calls, but you go back and you look at those numbers the last couple of games, especially in game 3. I'm just like, it just felt like the officials were trying to will Boston to a lead there. And that's been frustrating. But Jimmy Butler's knee, what is it going to be? How is it going to bounce back? How is he going to bounce back? Is a big, big worry for me. I will say, though, I think, honestly, a bigger concern for me is Tyler Hero. And I know that a lot of Heat fans have been getting on Tyler's case that he hasn't looked himself, that he hasn't been scoring at will the way that he has been. So I get it. But I still think he's a vital, vital part of this team. And the idea that he, in that game 3, it wasn't just the fact that he was missing shots. He looked uncomfortable. And I wasn't talking about, like, defense pushing him around. Like, he looked unsure of himself. His fluidity was off. And a groin injury is really, really tricky. And I don't think it's something that I remember him really dealing with. So it could be a bit of a new injury that he's dealing with as well. I'm worried about that if I'm the Miami Heat. I do think that it was great that you got the scoring punch from Victor Oladipo yesterday. And it's interesting that you have guys like Victor Oladipo and Caleb Martin who really can't afford to have bad performances in the playoffs because they are trying to audition for next year. They both had stellar performances for the Miami Heat and made it even less of an embarrassment, if you could call it that, in Game 4. But I would say out of the injuries that the Heat have, PJ Tucker, Tyler Hero, and Jimmy Butler, Tyler is the one that concerns me the most just because I really do feel like if he doesn't have that fluidity, that quickness to him, he's already having some struggles with dealing with the defense. He already is struggling with his three-point shot. Now you add an injury on top of it. You know, what version of that guy are we going to get the rest of the way? So that one's a big concern for me. And PJ Tucker as well. You know, PJ Tucker is 37. He is a warrior. He is ultimate tough. Nobody can even talk to him about his injuries. He had his thing in an air cast or a compression cast at practice. And so you wonder, like, all right, well, like, how is this guy handling all of this? How is he getting through all of this? Is he okay? That's a big concern for me as far as like one of the things I'm worried about. Number two thing that I'm worried about with the Miami Heat is their three-point shooting. It's non-existent. Like there's nobody on this team right now you feel super comfortable hitting a three. I was walking appropriately my garbage to my curb last night, and I was thinking to myself, who do I really trust on this team shooting a three anymore? Because this was Tres Leches, this was, you know, the South Beach, you know, splash zone. It was three-pointers galore on this team this year with the way that they were shooting, and it's just been eradicated. And I don't feel like it's all just a case of, you know, defenses are taking it away. Maybe some of it is Duncan Robinson isn't playing, although Duncan didn't have like an A-plus shooting season. But Strus has come back to earth. Tyler Hero, I think, is the biggest one because Tyler Hero is shooting like 23% from downtown. And that was before I think these injury things were flaring up. His shot just hasn't been there this year. And so Gabe Vincent, you know, can get hot for sure. And we've seen Jimmy kind of do his thing. He's definitely out of that repertoire. And certainly Kyle Lowry, who was having a good year shooting from three, he now has had these injuries to deal with. So he hasn't really been a factor in the game. It's been a weapon that has been seemingly taken away from Miami or just hasn't been there, where you're just hoping there's going to be one of these games where, like Boston had in Game 2, they just absolutely light you up from downtown. And that, you know, they've had some clutch threes. Max Strus came through with a big one in Game 3. But as far as that guy who can just give you, like the Duncan Robinson did in the first game of the playoffs, like 7 3-pointers to just like blow things up, or like Danny Green did in one of those games against Philadelphia. They're really, really lacking that right now. The guy who can really explode, either get them back into a game or keep it pretty respectable, or, you know, keep them in a game or rally them or blow the doors off a team. I don't know who I trust right now. I would say the number one guy I still trust is Max Strus, especially from his onions factor. That was a big time three that he hit late. And I still trust PJ Tucker from the corner. But like Duncan hit some threes in that stinker yesterday, seemingly is only hitting him in garbage time now. Gabe Vincent, like I said, he can get hot every now and then. But from this team to go from the number one three-point shooting team to, well, now the worst of the four, but at one point was in the bottom third of the playoff teams, is worrisome and surprising. And I don't know if we could expect it to bounce back, especially with Tyler's injury, especially with Tyler's struggles. I don't know where that turnaround comes unless you're just hoping Max Strus just finally has one of those games where he breaks open. But Max is trying to do a lot. There's a lot on Max. They're trying to put a lot of pressure on him. So I don't know how that gets freed up, but that is another concerning thing for me. And then the last thing I'm worried about, you know, / intrigued by, is Bam Adebayo. You know, you guys know I'm a huge Bam Adebayo fan. You know, I really, really love watching him play basketball, and that Game 3 was, that was magnifique. It was tremendous to watch. The question now with Bam is, was Game 3 a one-off? Like, was Game 3, the 31 points, 11 rebounds, and all that, the assists, everything that he was putting forth, was that a one-off? Because you have Robert Williams back now. They had their twin towers with him and Al Horford. And you're wondering to yourself, okay, did Bam take advantage of a situation? Because he's been able to do this where, you know, there's been games where Joel was out, feasted on the Sixers. There was games where where Clint Capella was out, feasted on the Hawks. Now he had a game where Robert Williams was out, feasted on Boston. Can Bam Adebayo come through on a game where you have that twin towers there of Al Horford and Robert Williams? Can he go to work? I felt like yesterday the other thing that was frustrating about it was not just that Bam wasn't scoring, but again, kind of went into that mode where he was like, I don't trust myself as the option here. I want to try and find something else, because you look back at a game and Bam takes in this 5 shots. You're like, come on, dude. Like, what are we doing here with you? With you're taking 5 shots a game where, you know, everybody on the starting roster is shooting more than you, where everybody on the bench seemingly coming in is shooting more than you. Like, Dwayne Dedmon should not be having as many shots as Bam Adebayo. Shouldn't be happening. And so I want Bam to cut loose. Like, if you're going to go down, I'd rather go down with Bam Adebayo taking and missing shots. I'd rather have a game where he is like Jimmy, 3 for 14, than him being 3 for 5. I just think it's too conservative. I think it's, too passive. And I know that aggressive is such a buzzword with him. It's almost overused to the point. But I do think that we have seen what that does for this team. They have their best offensive quarter of the series when he unlocks everything. And really, if you want to talk about this team and who can be Robin to Jimmy Butler's Batman, it's Bam. Tyler Hero, we've seen the physicality can get to him a little bit. He seems now a little bit banged up. Bam is relatively the healthiest on the team. He has the opportunity to get to the free throw line the most, although it was garbage that he only got to the free throw line one time in that performance in Game 3. It's much needed that he needs to turn up the shot volume, his own usage, take it upon himself, try and get Robert Williams in foul trouble, try and force the issue on Al Horford, because you're letting him off the hook in that case. And when these teams see him give shots off to Gabe Vincent or Caleb Martin or Victor Oladipo, they're happy about it, man. They're happy about it. So even with Vic having a fantastic game yesterday, I got to see, I got to see more from Bam. And I think it's needed if they're going to succeed in this series. So those are the big things that I'm worried about. The things that I am feeling good about going about the Heat, they do have home court advantage, okay? This has been an interesting series, a weird series, all right? Tons of blowouts. No game really back and forth. There's been more competitiveness when there's been blowouts from Boston to rally back, although they had the big lead in Game 1. Miami then got the lead, and Boston kind of made it, I would say, respectable. I think the Heat really did kind of kick their ass in that game. Game 2, absolutely smoked from downtown by Boston in your building. You have the all-time guts win. Game 3, blow them out in the first quarter, and no Jimmy Butler to close things out. Showed a lot of heart, got your home court advantage back, which I thought showed a lot. And then yesterday was just an absolute embarrassment stinker, and it kind of felt like the Heat were content with, hey, we got home court advantage back. Well, here you are. You've been very good there in that building. You've only lost once, but it has been to this team. And you are going back to your building and hoping that good things are going to happen there, that maybe Jimmy Butler not having to travel, Jimmy Butler being in his own bed for a night, he's going to wake up, feel a lot better, be ready to go. Maybe the other guys feel that way as well. And we do know that, typically the role players, the shooters, they are more comfortable at home, and that's going to work out better for you, not only in a Game 5, which would swing this series, but in a potential Game 7 if it does go that way. So you have to feel good about the Miami Heat having home court advantage, even with Boston having maybe more lopsided dominance in the games that they've won or the more quarters that they've won. Still, the idea that the Heat have these games in their building, they've already let one slip away. They've been very good there, and I still think you have to feel pretty good about the team that does have home court advantage in a 2 out of 3, essentially, going into these last games in this series. But obviously Game 5 is a huge one because you lose this game. If you do lose on Wednesday night, the idea that you're going to go win a second one in Boston when it's closed out, how that building can get, how you are health-wise, it could be a big ask. So obviously tomorrow looms large for the Miami Heat. The other thing that I feel good about with the Miami Heat is the turnovers. I do think that the Miami Heat are doing a lot to force Boston to turn over the basketball. They've had a game where they've had 12 blocks, essentially. They had a game where they had 19 steals. A lot of that, for me, is this Miami Heat team getting up in Boston, playing physical defense. We know that both of these teams are going to have really a big tenacity about what they bring to the table. And so for me, I look at that and I say, I think Miami can replicate that in another game, especially at home. I do think that they have shown Jaylen Brown's propensity to turn over the basketball. Jason Tatum's propensity to turn over the basketball. It's not like they had a fantastic shooting game yesterday from Boston. They did get to a parade to the free throw line. But Miami has to get those opportunities. They do have to take advantage of that because I do think it makes them get easy baskets. We can see how this team gets bogged down. We can see how they can get slowed down. Those things are very, very important for them. But the thing that is good for it is they have so many guys that are good for it. Nobody's better at it than Jimmy Butler. We've seen how good Victor Oladipo is. We've seen how good Kyle Lowry is. Same thing with PJ Tucker. Bam, getting those deflections, getting arm angles in. Like, they have all shown that they have great talent at it. They have a lot of great defenders. And I do think that out of all the offensive struggles and just straight up half court where it could look real putrid for Miami, their ability to get the basketball from Boston and turn it into easy baskets in a couple of games this series, for me, I think they can crank that up again, at least in one of these games, and I think can lead to another win for them. So I do feel really good about their ability to turn Boston over like crazy and probably find their way to a victory in that one. It's maybe you can't rely on it to get 2 wins, maybe you can't rely on it to get every single game, but it does feel to me like in their building, the arena is going to be hopping and hot. People are going to be ready for Pepas to be playing. I would love Miami to get off to a great start. I mean, they really haven't. They had that in Game 3. You saw, I thought the ease that it brought to the team, even with all the runs that Boston almost got to. I just think that it would ease a lot of pressure on this team, especially after some of the stinkers that they've had in basically games 1, 2, and 4. And then finally, the thing I feel good about, I feel like the free throw thing has to normalize a little bit. Like, it has been egregiously in Boston's favor. It's like, I got to feel like, I know that Boston crowd is hostile. I got to feel like in Miami, that thing's going to come back for the Heat a little bit. We saw that Jimmy Butler was getting to the free throw line like crazy. The guy gets super aggressive. I do think that's the version of the guy we're going to see. I think that they know that this free throw thing is a thing, and I think that you're going to see a really turned aggressive Miami team. Maybe Boston will be able to neutralize it anyway because of Horford and Robert Williams and Grant Williams. Maybe they'll be able to deter that anyway. That's, obviously going to be one of the big, I think, storylines going into it. But that overwhelming home court whistle that Boston was getting, and it has been overwhelming with what they've been getting, I got to think that's going to normalize a little bit, especially with 2 of the last 3 games being at home. One of them being a Game 7, potentially. I think that's going to come back to earth a little bit. And so I feel good about that. The other thing that I feel good about, I'll put kind of these in others determined, is like, look, these aren't things that you can really count on because I don't know, but I do feel like Jimmy Butler is going to look a lot more like himself. It didn't feel like in Boston, quick turnaround. Did we get full tilt Jimmy Butler? I don't know. Maybe him being back at home gets that thing rehabbed a little bit better. PJ Tucker, it's kind of gone. You don't know. He's 37 years old, bouncing back. Tyler's the one that I think is the wild card because I do feel like PJ and Jimmy can will themselves through, and I'm not calling out Tyler's toughness. I think Tyler maybe has the most severe new one, and how does that affect his movement? Like we've seen Jimmy Butler kind of will his way through the NBA Finals with nothing left. His ability to kind of just put the tank on E. So that's kind of my overlook over these last 4 games. The things I feel good about, the things I'm worried about. It's gone both back and forth. I still feel good about the Heat pulling this thing out, but I'm very, very excited to be boots on the ground for Game 5 because I wouldn't say this has been a good series. It has been a fascinating series and a weird-ass series for sure.